Right now, 3 of Earth's most dangerous fault systems are doing something at the same time. One just killed thousands of people. One just proved it doesn't have to. And one hasn't moved in over a century. And scientists just said that's the problem, not the good news. Venezuela, Japan, California. Same planet, same week, wildly different outcomes. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why identical earthquakes can produce completely different endings, and which of these 3 stories should actually worry you the most. Let's start with Venezuela, because this is the one that turned into tragedy. On June 24, 2026, 2 massive earthquakes tore through northwestern Venezuela, 39 seconds apart. The first hit, magnitude 7.2. Before the ground even settled, the second hit, magnitude 7.5. Geologists call this a doublet, 2 nearly identical ruptures on neighboring faults. And it's rare enough that most seismologists go their whole career without seeing one this powerful. Both quakes were shallow, only about 10 to 20 kilometers deep, which matters enormously. Shallow ruptures don't lose energy passing through miles of rock before reaching the surface. Nearly all of it hits directly, and it hit a country that was already breaking before the ground ever moved. In La Guaira state, north of Caracas, entire neighborhoods collapsed. As of the most recent count, nearly 3,000 people are confirmed dead, more than 12,000 injured, and tens of thousands still listed as missing. The math there is brutal. Every earthquake casualty model the USGS ran predicted this could climb into the tens of thousands once every collapsed building is fully searched. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. This wasn't just bad luck. Venezuela's economy has been in freefall for years. Maintenance on buildings stopped happening. Construction enforcement in poorer neighborhoods was minimal at best. When the ground lurched twice in under a minute, structures that were never designed to flex simply gave up. Keep that number in your head. Magnitude 7.5. Because we're about to see the exact same number produce an almost unrecognizably different outcome. Just months earlier, on the other side of the world, Japan got hit too. A magnitude 7.4 struck off the Sanriku coast in April 2026. Along the same stretch of fault line responsible for the devastating 2011 Tohoku disaster, the 4th strongest earthquake ever recorded. Shaking was felt from Hokkaido all the way down through central Japan. Tens of millions of people felt the ground move. A tsunami warning went out immediately. Nearly 44,000 people evacuated the coast. Final result, a couple hundred power outages, 2 injuries from falls, 0 deaths, 0 collapsed buildings. Read that again. A magnitude 7.4, a tsunami warning, tens of millions of people in the shaking zone, and the entire disaster amounted to 2 people tripping. This is not luck. This is decades of decisions. Japan's building codes force structures to bend and sway instead of snapping. The country has poured money into base isolation systems, giant shock absorbers built directly into foundations. Bullet trains automatically brake. The instant seismic sensors detect unusual motion. Kids in Japanese elementary schools run earthquake drills so often the response becomes muscle memory, not panic. Same planet, same magnitude range. One country loses thousands of lives, one loses none. The earthquake didn't choose the outcome, the decades of preparation before it did. So now let's talk about the one that hasn't happened yet, because this is the part that should actually keep you up at night. In June 2026, a research team led by geophysicist Liliane Burkhardt published a study most people haven't heard of, and it might be the single most important earthquake finding of the decade. Using a physics-based model built from 1,000 years of geological evidence, tree rings, radiocarbon dating, and historical records, they calculated present-day stress levels along the southern San Andreas and San Jacinto fault systems. Their conclusion: stress on these faults is now at or above the highest levels recorded in the past 1,000 years. Here's why that number is so alarming. Faults don't release stress smoothly. Two plates grind against each other, but friction locks the surface in place while the deeper rock keeps moving. That mismatch stores energy, like winding a spring tighter and tighter, sometimes for centuries, until the rock simply can't hold anymore, and it all releases at once. The southern San Andreas hasn't had a major rupture since 1857. That's over 160 years of the plates grinding past each other at roughly 2 inches a year, with almost nothing released. All of that motion has to go somewhere. It's been going straight into stored stress in the rock. And there's a second discovery buried in this study that makes it worse. The San Andreas and San Jacinto faults meet at a location called Cajon Pass, northeast of Los Angeles. Researchers found this junction can act like a gate. Under the right stress conditions, a rupture starting on one fault can jump straight across the pass onto the other, turning a single fault earthquake into a combined rupture strong enough to hit magnitude 7.4 to 7.8 across a dramatically larger area, from the Los Angeles basin through San Bernardino, Riverside, and the Coachella Valley simultaneously. According to the researchers, the stress levels on both faults right now sit close enough together that this gate is essentially unlocked. When asked when the next major quake might actually hit, one seismologist involved in related California research put it bluntly: it could be today, it could be 30 years from now. On a geological time scale, there's no meaningful difference between those two answers. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about when a story like this goes around online. People immediately jump to, is the planet becoming more seismically active? Is something bigger connecting all of this? The honest scientific answer is no. Venezuela sits on the boundary between the Caribbean and South American plates. Japan sits on a completely separate subduction zone thousands of kilometers away. These systems don't talk to each other. One earthquake didn't trigger the other. Multiple magnitude 6+ earthquakes happen somewhere on Earth, roughly every 3 days on average. Seeing several significant quakes in the same month isn't an anomaly. It's Tuesday, geologically speaking. What's actually different isn't the planet, it's us. The global population living directly on top of active fault lines has exploded over the last 70 years. Tokyo, Los Angeles, Istanbul, Jakarta, Manila, Mexico City, all enormous cities sitting on or near major fault systems. The question was never whether these places would eventually get hit. They will. The only real question is what condition their buildings and emergency systems are in when it happens. And that number gap is genuinely wild once you understand the math behind it. Earthquake magnitude isn't a simple scale where 7 is just a little bigger than 6. It's logarithmic. Each whole number jump represents roughly 10 times more ground movement and about 31 times more energy released. A magnitude 7.5 doesn't release a bit more energy than a 6.5. It releases somewhere around 30 times more. That's the difference between a firecracker and a demolition charge, and it's exactly why scientists get nervous the moment numbers start climbing past 7. So here's what this all actually adds up to. Venezuela shows what happens when a powerful earthquake meets decades of poverty, deferred maintenance, and underfunded emergency planning. Japan shows what happens when a country takes the exact same geological risk seriously for generations and builds accordingly. And California is the open question sitting right now at the highest fault stress level scientists have measured in 1,000 years, with a researcher-identified gate that could turn a bad earthquake into a catastrophic one. The uncomfortable truth in all three of these stories is the same. The earthquake itself doesn't decide how many people die. The decisions made years before it about what gets built, where money gets spent, and how seriously a government takes a risk it can't see, decide that instead. If you're in an earthquake zone right now, and odds are a huge number of you watching are, you can't retrofit your home tonight, but you can do the basics that actually save lives. Know where your gas shut-off valve is, strap down your water heater, bolt heavy furniture to the wall, keep a few days of water and supplies somewhere accessible. These take an afternoon, and in a real event, they're the difference between an emergency you get through and one you don't. Have you ever actually felt an earthquake, a small tremor, or the real thing? Tell me where you were and what it felt like. I read every single one of these. And if you want to keep tracking this as it develops, subscribe, because between Venezuela's recovery, Japan's early warning systems, and whatever California's faults decide to do next, this story is nowhere near finished.